When you hear the word authority, what is the first thing that pops into your mind? Is it, oh no, it's the boss? Or mom or dad? Is it defiance? You can't tell me what to do? Is it, do I gotta do it? Or I gotta do it? Do you then think of all the reasons not to do whatever you're told to do? Is your instinct to resist or to act grudgingly? Or to say you'll comply and then simply not? Or is it to do whatever you're asked, willingly, cheerfully, and promptly? I suspect for many of us, the last option is not usually the first that comes to mind. The Hebrew people were definitely not happy. Mind you, they had been miraculously freed from slavery. They crossed the Red Sea on dry ground, while the pursuing Egyptians were swept away and drowned. Bitter water was made sweet. They were given manna to eat, and then for a change of pace, quail. Now, they were in a new area of the wilderness, and all of God's blessings had been forgotten. Instead of asking for water and expressing gratitude, they accused, they argued, they contended, they even threatened Moses. It would be easy for us to shake our heads and pick on them, seeing them as very different from ourselves. We would never do that, would we? They're not. They were human, and they were afraid. Even today, though we don't know the exact route that the Exodus took, all of those lands, that wilderness that they spent all those years in, is still a very barren place. It's desolate. If we found ourselves there, we would be dismayed, devastated, and desperate, especially if we had no clue as to where we were going and had no real idea of when or where our journey would end. And before we think, we would never willingly contemplate a return to slavery, we need to remember that we had not lived our entire lives under it, nor our parents, nor our grandparents, or our great-grandparents, or all the generations before us. That was all they knew. This freedom was a very new thing. And sometimes it's just easier to go back to a known past, even if it was absolutely positively horrible, than to step into a new but unknown future. Still, they were rejecting God's chosen one, Moses, and God himself. They'd forgotten God's faithfulness to them. Our psalm reminds us of that very thing. Remember, the Psalms were the hymnal of the Hebrew people. In it is found every emotion, with full witness to the human condition and the overarching testimony of God's activity and protection. In some, such as today's reading, memories are stirred as to the faithfulness of God. Think of how our hymns stir our own memories, how they refresh who we are, how they offer praise or lament to God. It is part of our worship. Our reading from Philippians gives us another aspect of faithful living, calling for the believers to be united, to have the same mind as Christ. On the surface, this looks impossible. Jesus was God's Son. We are humans with all of our faults and failures. Paul was certainly aware of that. He spoke of his own failings. But in this great Christological hymn, he is encouraging the believers, and that includes us, to use what they have already experienced and to continue to expand it. A bit which might seem confusing, in fact, even a little bit contradictory, is at the end, where he tells them to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who is working you, enabling you both to will and to work for his good pleasure. This sounds like it's whatever we as individuals think it should be, but it is actually a continued call for unity. For the you is plural. They are to work it out together. You all are to work together. It's not a call to the individuals, but the body of Christ, seeking God's will. As we turn to the gospel, it seems very troubling. In fact, it's been used to create division and, yes, even hatred between Christians and Jews. We need to understand the context to see clearly the issues being raised. The day before, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey to the acclaim of the crowds. It was Palm Sunday. Then he entered the temple, the same place that he was teaching in today's reading. Matthew records the following. Then Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who were selling and buying in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. He said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of thieves." The blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he cured them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the amazing things that he did, and heard the children crying out in the temple, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they became angry and said to him, "Do you hear what they are saying?" Jesus said to them, "Yes. Have you never read, out of the mouths of infants and nursing babies, you have prepared praise for yourself? Now, it is the next day. The religious authorities questioning Jesus had issues with his previous actions, as well as his teaching. Now remember, some were truly seeking the kingdom. Others thought they had all the answers. Gee, that kind of sounds like today, doesn't it? So they asked, where do you get your authority? This was not a question for honest information, but an attack, or at least a convenient way to reject him. Remember, they saw themselves as the ones in authority. They had studied and debated, and many strove to keep the law, including all the extra laws piled on to protect the law. Jesus turns the tables on them. Who gave John the Baptist his authority? Was he from God or not? Now, we would say, from God. It's obvious. They had a quandary, though. For you see, John had called all to repentance. He called them out as well, calling them hypocrites and vipers. It was powerful stuff. They were responsible for John's death, but you can sense that at least some of them were not at all upset that John had been arrested and silenced from his fiery preaching. But they couldn't say that. So they did the only thing they could say. We don't know. So Jesus tells them he won't answer their question. But then he does with a parable. He invites them along, but let's face it, there was only one possible answer. The first son, though he initially rejected his father's orders, does do it. Where the second, we might say he talked a good game, but he didn't do anything. Some commentators have pointed out that the second son said, "I go, sir." The word translated as "sir" is Kyrie, which can be translated as Lord. Perhaps it is a reminder to the church that Jesus said that not everyone who calls Lord, Lord will enter the kingdom. They are called to work the will of his Father. Jesus points back to John and the ultimate sinners for the religious authorities, the tax collectors and the prostitutes. He points out that they had listened to John and had repented and turned back to God, just as the first son obeyed his father. No doubt the authorities would have been insulted that sinners would go before them. Yet did you catch it? They too were given the opportunity to enter the kingdom. They were not being shut out. Well, how then should we see this parable? Some have said it is a question of works over faith. Doing things for the kingdom and instead of sitting by the sidelines. While there is certainly some truth in that interpretation, it has been used to shame people who cannot, for whatever reason, actively participate in whatever work is being espoused. Friends, God knows what our abilities are, and He will never reject us for something that is beyond our control. But before we heave a sigh of relief and say, oh good, I can just sit on the sidelines, we need to remember that God does strengthen and sustain us in ways that we can only imagine if we but ask. And yes, faith is critical. It's not a question of works versus faith, but work and faith. We are called into the body of Christ and are called to work together in love, as Paul told us. He said, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourselves. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but to the interests of others. Even more significant, I believe, are his final words in today's reading. For it is God who is at work in you, enabling you both to will and to work for his good pleasure. God is at work in each and every one of us because we follow his Son, our Lord and Savior. It's not up to us to produce manna or water in the wilderness or to feed everyone with our own strength. It is our job to live and work as we have been called, always seeking to glorify our Heavenly Father as we follow his Son, our Lord. Amen and amen.